to be his profile picture on YouTube and Sit and Survive, which was released on May 8th, 2014. However, that same day, a video would be posted to YouTube. Jim Sterling, a video game reviewer and critic, would post a 3.5-minute video going over the gameplay trailer of Chipper and Sons Lumberco, with the same criticisms many had shared prior, but expressing it in a much more emotional and vocal form.
I'm going to fuck your dog!
Something to know about this video is the fact that Scott had actually already taken down the Steam Greenlight page for Chipper and Sons at the time due to all of the criticism. So Jim Sterling making this video was basically just fucking hating for the hell of it, which on one hand, that was just kind of a super asshole move, but in retrospective, I think it was a necessary evil. Because of his current financial situation and all the hate and criticism he was receiving over Chipper and Sons, Scott actually went into a pretty depressive state for the time being, and even became pretty close to losing his faith in God. In the same interview conducted by Geeks Under Grace, he revealed that his life insurance policy had actually been cancelled due to the fact his insurance company had actually found out somehow that he had expressed thoughts of suicide, which was just even more fuel to the fire. It was at that point I realized that not only did my life have no value, but now my death had no value. I went before God again, and it was the first time I truly went before him with nothing. I had nothing to offer him. I told him to use me somehow, although at that moment I had no idea what he could possibly use me for. Eventually, Scott did have his faith restored in God again, however, and thinking about the criticism he had received for Chipper and Sons Lumberco, Scott decided to give game development one more shot, and did something he had never done before.
Have you ever wished you could play a video game your way? Where you can be invincible, unimaginably wealthy,
was going to make a horror game. With the initial failure of The Desolate Hope, Scott wanted to make an experience that was relatively short compared to his other works, as he didn't want to spend as much time on something that could end up like everything before it. So while The Desolate Hope was in works for 2 years, Five Nights at Freddy's would be made in just a fourth of that time. Starting with the most important part of the game, Scott had to decide what animals the animatronics were going to be based on. This didn't exactly take very long with the initial 3. He knew he wanted to make a bear, chicken, and bunny. However, the fourth took a bit more thinking. He thought about a beaver, which was immediately scrapped as it reminded him too much of Chipper and Sons, then a wolf, and after some more thinking, he landed on a fox. It didn't take very long for Scott to actually model the animatronics, taking around 1 to 2 days for each one using 3ds Max. Freddy was done first, and Bonnie was actually made from Freddy, which took another day. There isn't any information on how long Chica took. However, according to Scott, Foxy's model was actually done over a 24-hour road trip during the summer to visit his in-laws, which I always found pretty neat since Foxy's my favorite out of the 4. With the models done, now came the mechanics. Because of the failure of The Desolate Hope, Scott wanted to make a more concise experience that anyone could get instantly. In The Desolate Hope, it can be confusing where to go at times, so movement was out of the picture. The only form of movement in the game was looking left to right at your office. Everything was laid out in front of you. Power usage, buttons, and camera system. When you showed someone this game, they could get how the game works in less than a minute. So with all the mechanics set, now came the actual jump scares. Bonnie's jump scare was the first to be done. In fact, when it came to testing, Scott actually used a still image of Bonnie as a placeholder for every single animatronic jump scare. Because of this, however, this led to Scott actually having nightmares of his creation. He didn't find any of the animatronics actually scary, except for Bonnie. Speaking of testing, while Scott had some of his friends test the game for him to see what they thought, his main 2 and best testers would actually be his 2 own sons, Brayden and Ian. Multiple suggestions were made by these few testers. Some included saying to take out the phone guy, as they didn't think much background knowledge was needed, and Scott's mother actually agreed with the sentiment, and thought the game shouldn't have any mention of someone being killed. However, after months of testing, animating, modeling, programming, and changes, it was finally ready to be shown to the world. June 13th, 2014 would be the date when Scott Cawthon would submit FNAF to Steam Greenlight. On the same day, the first and only trailer of FNAF would be uploaded to his YouTube channel. Then a day later, Scott would start up a Kickstarter for the project, but then just 3 days after, he would cancel it for unknown reasons. There are actually some interesting things that can be seen in this Kickstarter. For one, Freddy was referred to as Freddy Bear instead, and there are multiple different rewards for pledging a certain amount. For $10, you could get a pack of 5 different wallpapers from the game. For $25, you could get the wallpaper pack and an early release copy of the game. And for $50, you could actually become a beta tester, receiving updated versions of the game weekly. If only I could go back in time and tell my 10-year-old self to spend $50 on this Kickstarter, then I could become its first and only supporter. Then, a little over a month later on July 23rd, a page would be created for the website IndieDB, and then a demo was available for download on July 24th, containing just the first 2 nights. Then finally, on August 8th, 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's would be fully available for anyone to play on Desera. What the fuck is Desera? Okay, to explain what Desera was, it was just another game distribution platform similar to something like itch.io, except for the fact that it ended up getting shut down for a long time, and then the platform was turned into a shitty browser game website. But whatever. Five Nights at Freddy's was officially released, baby! Now for each of these games, I'll talk about the gameplay first, and then get into everything else like the community, lore developments, and all of that stuff later. So, let's just get into it. When you start a new game, you're briefly given a newspaper clipping within the job you're applying for, Freddy Games. But now, finally start our first night. You're immediately greeted with the sounds of a fan, electric humming, and an incoming phone call. With no other choice, the phone is picked up, and we get to hear one of the most iconic lines within the series.
Hello? I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. I actually work...
Right off the bat, we are already given a lot of info from the man on the phone, who would soon be dubbed the phone guy by the community. The phone guy immediately just drops a ton of reasons as to why the players should just quit right then and there, from the introductory greeting.
Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached and the carpets have been replaced, blah blah blah.
To the animatronics, what could happen if they get to you.
The characters do tend to wander a bit. They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. They'll probably try to forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit. So you can imagine how having your head forcefully pressed inside one of those could cause a bit of discomfort and death.
And of course, the bite of 87.
Then there was the bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, you know? Now concerning yours.
This phone call doesn't give any information on what to actually do, except right toward the end where it's touched on briefly, and after that, the shift finally starts. The core gameplay of FNAF is very simple. Check your cameras to see where the animatronics are, check the lights, and close the doors if they're right in front of you. You're gonna want to conserve as much power as possible though, because if you don't, well, let's just say that a certain animatronic will have a word with you. Speaking of animatronics, each one does work differently, so I'll briefly explain them for the 2 people who have somehow never seen any gameplay of FNAF, but somehow have still gotten this far into the video. Bonnie and Chica essentially both work the same. They'll both start at Cam 1A, and then make their way to Cam 1B. However, Bonnie will deviate and go to either Cam 5 or Cam 2A. If he goes to Cam 2A, then he'll either go to Cam 3 or Cam 2B. Once at 2B, you have to wait until he either goes away or appears in the left door, to which you then have to shut it. Chica is dealt in the same way, except going to your right door from Cam 7 to 6, and 4A and 4B. That's all you need to worry about for Night 1. Night 2 is essentially the same, except this is when Foxy is introduced to the loop, as Phone Guy advises on how to deal with him. For the longest time, it was believed that you had to be watching Pirate Cove to stall Foxy, but you can actually go on any cam and it'll stall him the same. Either way, Foxy will have 4 different stages that indicate when he's about to attack. When his cove is wide open and nowhere to be seen, if you switch to Cam 2A, you can see him bolt down the hallway, which will result in a jump scare if you don't close your door in time, which this will become important later on. Night 3 is when Freddy finally joins the crew, as the Phone Guy alludes to.
Anyway, I better not take up too much of your time.
Albion Online is a sandbox MMORPG in which you write your own story instead of following a laid out.
Things are getting real tonight.
While Freddy is the latest to join the gang, he's definitely the most creepy out of the 4 gameplay-wise in my my opinion. He goes along the same path as Chica, except you can barely notice when he is on the cameras, so you need to look closely otherwise you'll miss him. Unlike the other animatronics, most of the time when Freddy moves, you will always have a sound cue of him laughing. Once he reaches Cam 4B, he needs to shut the door, otherwise he'll jump scare you right when he has a chance to. You really want to prevent him from getting there in the first place, however he will never go back to any of the later cameras except for 4A. All you have to do to stall him is open your monitor on the camera he's on, which prevents him from moving until the monitor is down. Now that I've explained all of the animatronics, on to the last two nights. Night 4 and 5 are the same as night 3, just amped up in difficulty. However, what makes them very distinct from each other are the phone calls. Night 4's infamous phone call is the last we ever hear from Phone Guy. He gives us one last request before being assumably killed.
Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you can check inside those suits in the back room. I'm gonna try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad. Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there.
Surprisingly, Night 5 still has a phone call. However, we aren't greeted to the sound of a human voice, and instead, a very deep-pitched garble, which is assumed to be an animatronic, although it is still unknown to this day who it is. Now, I have no idea how people found this out, but by reversing the audio and touching it up, the garble turns out to actually be from an excerpt from a book called Autobiography of a Yogi, in paragraph 36 of chapter 8.
Stated by fully use of your marvel mechanism. Would it not be easily possible to avoid some of them in quick laboratory assessment to indicate the influence of very underlying low-time probe? You are right. Couples usually made quite cute in the race. Seldom knows and perennial. The joy of creating.
Nobody knows why this book was used, however, it has since become sort of common knowledge that the Night 5 audio comes from this book. And I think it's pretty funny that if you were to ask a Gen Zer if they know what this book is and how they're introduced to it, they'd most likely say FNAF. Either way, upon completing Night 5, we are finally rewarded with our paycheck of $120. But we aren't done. In the main menu of the game, we are rewarded a star for our completion of the base game. However, below the continue button is an option to continue on to the 6th night, which is essentially just a harder night than Night 5. There isn't a phone call for this one, it just throws you straight into it. When completing Night 6, you're rewarded with 50 fucking cents of overtime pay. What the fuck? Also on the menu, you get a second star. And most intriguingly, a custom night. Ranging from 0 to 20, you can individually set the AI levels of each animatronic. I don't think when Scott Cawthon added this feature, did he realize that this would end up creating an entirely different sub-community of FNAF. But at the same time, he didn't really expect this game to take off, so this game really nailed everything it's said to do. The sound design is amazing. It even comes to play with certain keys being memorizable on what they do. The mechanics are simple, the gameplay loop is fun, and most importantly, it is fucking terrifying. You never feel safe in this office, and the only time you do is with these huge metal OSHA violating doors down, which can only stay on for so long because of how much power they consume. The characters are iconic and so distinctive from one another, it would create an entirely new genre altogether, mascot horror. But enough of what I thought about this game. What did the public think of it at the time? Immediately, FNAF became an almost overnight success, and I don't think anyone can argue against the fact that YouTube videos about the game were a massive production, especially Let's Plays. Speaking of which, the very first Let's Play of this game would actually be uploaded to YouTube only 13 days after the trailer by someone named Ben Scoopist. Now you're probably confused as to how this video came out so much earlier than the actual release date of the game, and without playing a copy of the demo either. That's because Scott himself actually gave Ben an early copy to the game. While Ben didn't donate to the failed Kickstarter for the game, obviously, he did actually record and play the Desolate Hope before FNAF was even announced, and being probably the first to actually upload upload a full playthrough of the game, Scott took notice of this and appreciated this gesture, so the two got to talking and Ben received an early copy of the game, and well, the rest is history. While Ben never really got the recognition he deserved, hell, people only found us out after an interview he did for a section of a Sagan Hawks video. After the game was officially released, it was only a matter of days before the game would skyrocket into the public sphere, and the fuse to that rocket would be lit on August 10th, 2014. A British YouTuber by the name of YummyMash would upload his playthrough of the FNAF demo, just a mere 2 days after the game's official release. While being one of the earliest playthroughs of the game after its official release, if not potentially the earliest, it wasn't really anything special. I mean hell, he only barely got past night 1 for the entire video, and it sits at just barely 1 million views. But the thing that makes this video really special is who would be inspired to record their own gameplay after YummyMash did this. 2 days after this video was uploaded, the fuse would set the rocket off.
Are you a Roblox fanatic? Microsoft Rewards has a brand new way for you to earn digital gift cards from Roblox. Just sign up for Microsoft Rewards, then search, play, and shop on Edge, Xbox, Bing, and other Microsoft products every day. You'll earn Microsoft Rewards points which you can redeem for digital Roblox gift cards. So what are you waiting for? Get started now at rewards.microsoft.com.
Pizza Hut is about to hook you up with more of what you love. Because when you order any pizza, we'll hook you up with a free pizza later. That's a pizza now.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's, an indie horror game that you guys suggested en masse, and I saw that YummyMash played it and he said it was really, really good. So I'm very eager to see what is up, and that is a terrifying...
Markiplier's first ever video on Five Nights at Freddy's would be uploaded to YouTube on August 12th of the same year, being inspired by YummyMash to play the game. I don't think many people understand how crazy of a chain reaction this is. The fact that one of Mark's old friends playing the game inspired him to play the game and resulted in the most popular Let's Play of the FNAF series by far, and even one of the most popular Let's Play videos in general, sitting at a whopping 120 million views, is just absolutely fucking insane. This would also lead to the exposure of FNAF to millions of people, as well as Markiplier himself. Hell, in fact, this was the case for me. My first ever Markiplier and FNAF video was this playthrough, and I remember so distinctly seeing this video when it first came out. My family and I had just moved to a new house, and in the same week while we were getting things set up, they had just finished hooking up our smart TV we had to the internet. Since our parents didn't want me and my brothers getting in the way of their moving, they just let us onto YouTube on the TV. Upon opening the app, since we weren't logged into any account or anything, it just showed us what was trending, and lo and behold, there was Markiplier's FNAF video. Markiplier's first jump scare by Foxy had also just happened to be me and my brother's first jump scare as well, and I remember just being so freaked out at that, but also entertained, and it was probably one of my earliest memories I have of being interested in horror. Anyways, enough of that lame personal bullshit, it's time to go viral, baby. This was the explosion for the rocket, and now hundreds if not tens of thousands of YouTubers were making content on the game, exposing FNAF to millions of people, with even some careers being started because of it, probably most notably Dawko, uploading his first FNAF video on August 15th. But there were many notable names who would also upload their respective gameplay videos, such as Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie, and 4AMsKenshin, who would actually upload his video on the same day as Markiplier. He even got a comment from Scott, and it wasn't just Let's Players either. Musicians, digital artists, animators, theorists. The FNAF community was growing at such a rapid pace with no sign of slowing down. So while I won't be able to cover every single tiny detail for each of these sub-communities, I'll try and get the most popular ones. When it comes to music, I think everybody knows who was the first and best to do it. The Living Tombstone would post their original song just a mere 29 days after the game was released, simply titled Five Nights at Freddy's One Song, and it instantly became an iconic hit. The lyrics lyrics, vocals, instrumentals, and with the handle @_CG_1999 would post this. A painting of Freddy Fazbear. Pretty good one at that. I think it's an awesome piece for it to be the first fan art of the game, at least that we know of. Maybe there's a cave drawing out there with Foxy on it or something. Animators would also go crazy with this game. Crazy Boars' Troll Palace video, 5 AM at Freddy's, Markiplier's FNAF Animated, popularized by Markiplier with the second video on the game, where he encounters by Markiplier with the second video on the game, where he encounters Golden Freddy and puts it in the title. But this single character would lead to even more speculation about the story of the game, and thus the theory community was born. Now there are tons of theories being speculated upon because of the nature of the game. Scott didn't go with the traditional approach when it came to storytelling, instead going with a much different route by giving tiny breadcrumbs, which would lead to a bigger picture. What was the bite of 87? What was the missing children? And most importantly, his teeth that appeared to be much sharper than the other three. Speaking of Foxy, there was a theory that Foxy was actually a good guy based on the fact that his jump scare was much more different than the others, just peeking from the door frame instead of, mauling your face off. But we'll later see this theory prove itself wrong. Most of the theories, such as whether Golden Freddy was a killer or not, were purely just speculation. However, we should talk about what was probably the most insane theory at the time, and if I'm being honest, still is. I'm sure everyone knows who MadPat or Game Theory is by now, being one of the forerunners of the FNAF theory scene, if not the forerunner. Uploading his first FNAF video on October 23rd, 2014, he made the absolutely batshit insane theory of connecting the game to a real-life event that took place in 1993 Aurora, California, where a man would shoot 4 people dead and critically wound another in a Chuck E. Cheese. Now at the time, this was probably a pretty plausible theory since there was so much mystery around the game, but hindsight in 2024,
you ever have a clip you just want to share with your friends, you can't go back in the game and the replay's gone forever? Outplayed has one step, which is just downloading. You don't have to worry about hitting record. All you do.
What the fuck? Anyways, I just want to cover that since this is one of the only times I'm going to talk about theories from MadPat, since he literally has like over 100 videos and live streams on FNAF. I am not watching all of that. You know how I said the addition of a custom night would create an entirely new sub-community for the game? Well, upon seeing the maximum limit for each of the animatronic AI levels, people started to wonder if it was possible to set all 4 characters to 20 and complete the night. Thus, 420 mode was born, also known as the Max Mode Challenge. Scott Cawthon had never tested whether this was even possible or not before releasing the game, but just 12 days after releasing the game, a player by the name of Big Bug would upload the world's first Max Mode completion to YouTube, taking around 23 hours and 170 tries according to him. This was a monumental achievement at the time, and even caught the attention of Scott himself, who would end up adding a 3rd star to the title screen for anyone who had also completed it afterward. However, most people, including myself, were mostly introduced to this type of challenge by Markiplier, who would upload his completion of 420 just a day later, being the second person to ever complete 420, while also simultaneously swiping Big Bug out of the limelight. He still did credit Big Bug, however, for being the first victor, so at least there's that. The final thing I'll touch on for this game would be the hoaxes. There were plenty of these in the early days of the community, some of which were honestly pretty convincing, but the 2 most notable around this era would be Sparky the Dog and the 1987 secret ending. Sparky the Dog was created a little bit after the game's release by 2 people named Coda Bear and Nougat. It was rumored that Sparky was a secret 6th animatronic, and how you could see Sparky on Cam 5, the backstage camera. They would post supposed proof of this being real, and it would spread like wildfire. After a month or so, however, Nougat would reveal the entire thing to be a hoax on their Tumblr page, due to the fact that it got so out of hand, with people digging through FNAF's game files, trying desperately to find Sparky, and people having to constantly remove Sparky from their wikis as an official animatronic. The reason this was able to be spread for so long, even after it was announced to be faked, was probably because the Photoshop job was honestly really well done, even for today's standards, and especially back then. The thing that made this really convincing was probably how the static of the camera was layered on top of Sparky flawlessly, and the design itself being relatively consistent to the other animatronics. The 1987 secret ending, on the other hand, while being able to be proven fake really easily, was actually made canon in a sort of weird way. The original rumor was that if you inserted 1987 into the custom night of the game, you would get a secret ending. Obviously nothing actually happened when players did this until Scott caught wind of it. He would later update the game so if you input 1987 now, you could get a Golden Freddy jump scare and a game crash, which it still does to this day. This, while being a really small change, definitely is sort of wholesome in a weird way. Like, Scott noticed this rumor being spread around the community, and instead of ignoring it or shutting it down, he decided to do a little joke that not only debunked the rumor, but also turned it into a fun Easter egg that was also used to troll people. I could really go on and on and on about the iconic pieces of media that are being released left, right, and center around this time, such as Garrett Williamson's How to Make Five Nights at Freddy's Not Scary. However, that in itself could probably bring this video to being 10 hours long, even if I just touched on everything briefly. So I'll move on to the day of September 24th, 2014. On Scott Cawthon's previously mentioned website, scottgames.com, he would occasionally change to give updates on his projects. However, on that September day, he did something he had never done on his website before. He posted a teaser for his next project. Now, it was pretty obvious as to what this could mean. Scott was working on a sequel to FNAF. If it wasn't evident by the fact there's a big ass 2 in the photo next to a never seen before Freddy model, the file itself was literally called FNAF2.jpg. It seems Scott was going for a 2015 release date. However, it wasn't known what month just yet. Just 4 days later, on September 28th, the teaser would be replaced by a different one, something borrowed and something new. This was the first look we had at a completely new character, and this implied the fact that, well, the cast of the first game were probably all destroyed now, or as the community would later call them, withered. Going into October on the 8th, another teaser would replace the previous one, this time showcasing Foxy and a different variant that at the time was nicknamed Miss Foxy. How original. Obviously we know now that it's called Mangle. It's interesting to see at this point in time, Mangle here as a hook, but in the actual release of the game, it's absent from their design. Another 8 days later, we would get the most revealing teaser out of all of them, which would be a first look at the mask mechanic, but not just that, it would also be a first look at the flashlight mechanic and how Foxy worked. Then just 5 days later, Scott would upload a video to his YouTube channel. The amount of hype this trailer generated in such a short amount of time was insane, and it made sense. So many new things were being revealed, such as the office, animatronics, map layout, and even a jump scare. I remember people were fucking dissecting this shit like a frog in a middle school science class, saying how if you reversed the audio of the London Bridge song, it would say some cryptic shit or something like that, but they just turned out to be breaches. Then sometime around November, we would get the final teaser, a simple cam button with a danger symbol around it. This would start a trend where people would now sometimes have to manipulate the image to get even more information, because if you brightened the teaser in Photoshop, it would reveal the puppet, or the marionette it was more popularly called at the time. Let's be honest, the marionette was and still is a way cooler name than the puppet. The community still wouldn't know what that danger symbol meant though, and it seemed like we wouldn't find out till January at the earliest. However, Scott had different plans, because on November 5th, 2014, we would be greeted with a surprise. They're probably wondering what the fuck this is and why I'm bringing this up in a bunch of teasers. And well, what you're looking at is actually the first ever FNAF fan game posted to GameJolt. Created by Zamins, this is literally just a game where you shoot a bunch of retextured human models that sort of resemble Freddy and Freddy only. The fact that this is the first FNAF fan game to ever be posted on GameJolt, and it's older than FNAF 2 is fucking hilarious to me. Like, just barely 2 by like 6 days. Wait, FNAF 2 was released 6 days later?
Who should try modding? Everyone who likes fun. Mods let you play games in a whole new way.
Much to everybody's surprise, FNAF 2 would actually be released on November 11th, 2014, despite the release date being teased to be around 2015. But hey, nobody was complaining. A day after the game's release, Scott would update his website to display a single word, offline. Well, it seems like Scott doesn't have anything else to show, so he might as well dive straight into the gameplay. Obviously, FNAF 2's gameplay is much more different than FNAF 1, with essentially everything being changed except the fact that, well, you don't want the animatronics killing you. Duh. Because of the fact that there are literally twice as many animatronics in FNAF 2 compared to FNAF 1, I'm going to cover how you deal with them much more briefly and focus more on the phone calls. Starting up a new game, it starts very similarly to FNAF 1, a newspaper clipping detailing the grand reopening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. The pay is lower though, however, being $100.50 instead of the previous $120. This may just seem like simple wage theft from a shitty company, however, this will become important later on when it comes to the story of the game. The first night serves as yet another introductory night with very little threats, two being Toy Chica and Toy Bonnie. They'll come from the vents and can be seen using the light above the duct, and to make Chica go away, just put on your mask and wait for a sound cue. Bonnie is dealt with in the same way, except the animation of him going across your screen will play instead. As for this night's phone call, we get a decent amount of lore and much more information on how we're actually supposed to play the game compared to FNAF 1's Night 1 phone call. Animatronics are allowed to walk around during the day and are even connected to a criminal database to prevent unwanted guests from being in the area. However, since they were never given a night mode, they still continue to wander around and still try to find people, which in this case is a night guard you play as. There's two solutions to this, the previously mentioned mask and a music box. The mask is a hollowed out Freddy head which apparently tricks the facial scanners of the animatronics into thinking you're one of them. However, the music box is a totally different story. You know how I said there were only two threats? Well, it's actually more like three, with the aforementioned marionette or puppet from the teasers. To deal with her is relatively simple. On the prize corner camera is a button you can remotely use to wind up a music box. Keep it from depleting entirely, otherwise you'll get jump scared. The final piece of information we get for this night is how our flashlight works. It only really is used for the hallway, as the rest of the building has dedicated light buttons, while the flashlight can run out of power. The building lights cannot sense the pizzeria is actually powered by something that's more powerful than 20-year-old AAA batteries found in a TV remote with that crusty shit found all over it. You know what I'm talking about. Night 2's phone call is much shorter, but still gives a decent amount of information. We get to find out that the mask trick will work on all the withered animatronics as well, except for one, Foxy. Don't have to worry about him at all though, since the phone guy gives us a way to deal with him. He'll show up in the hall occasionally, and all we have to do is use our flashlight to, well, flash a light at him. There are three other animatronics that are also introduced into this night besides Foxy as well, for a total of 7 animatronics including the puppet, Balloon Boy, Toy Freddy, and Mangle. Balloon Boy and Mangle work relatively similarly, acting like counterparts to Toy Chica and Bonnie. Balloon Boy comes from the left vent, and if you see him, put on the mask and wait for a sound cue to make sure he goes away. If you don't, he won't jump scare you, but instead get into your office and steal your flashlight batteries, so you won't be able to look down the hall, which will most likely result in a death from Foxy. Mangle will come from the middle hall or the right vent. If they come down the middle hall, you just need to put on your mask and wait for them to go away. Same goes for the right vent. However, a loud static sound will play, so it'll be much more obvious when they're in the vent and go away. If allowed into the office, a jump scare is instant, but they'll hang around the ceiling for a random amount of time before killing you. Toy Freddy will just come down the hall and eventually show up in your face. Upon doing so, just put on your mask as fast as possible, and then he'll go away. Night 3 doesn't have a whole lot of information that is helpful to the player. Just a bit of conversation about Mangle, who was named that since, well, the kids literally couldn't stop just taking them apart, so the employees just got lazy and decided Mangle to be a, quote, take apart and put back together attraction. If animatronics can feel pain, then man, being Mangle must fucking suck. There were also some talk about rumors, but that's essentially it for the phone call. Withered Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy are introduced this night, and essentially work the same as Toy Freddy. They'll both make their way into your office, and once in your office, you just need to put on the mask fast enough so you don't get jump scared. Only difference between the three is that they'll come from different paths, but that's about it. One thing to note about the gameplay, however, is that from this night forward, you don't really use your cameras for anything else other than the music box, because the rate that the music box counts down is significantly faster than the first night, leaving little to no time at all to check the other cams. It's also to be noted that if one of the office animatronics are stalled for too long, they'll just automatically flip your monitor down and force you to put on the mask, which takes up winding time and lets it go down. So from here on out, the strategy is more so to be focused on winding up the music box as much as possible, and then dealing with threats afterward, with Foxy, Toy Bonnie, and Balloon Boy being the most important. Night 5 and 4 are essentially harder versions of Night 3. There aren't any new animatronics introduced, so I'll just talk about the phone calls. Night 4's phone call is quite jarring to say the least, letting the player know that some investigation is now going on at the pizzeria, and then just spitting some corporate garbage.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days. I don't know. I want to emphasize, though, that it's really just a precaution. Fazbear Entertainment denies any wrongdoing.
One thing that adds to the lore, however, is the fact that the facial recognition system on all the animatronics have been acting weird lately, according to the phone guy. All the animatronics interact with the kids just fine, but don't do anything except stare when it comes to adults. On to Night 5, this phone call is one of the most important phone calls in the entire series as a whole when it comes to piecing the story of the game together. That's because it's the first time a different location is mentioned.
We're gonna try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that. It's closed for years, though. I doubt we'll be able to track anybody down.
This is the only time Fredbear's Family Diner is brought up in the entire game, and I'll come back to why this was such a pivotal moment for this game's story in the theory section of this game. However, we finally get our paycheck of $100.50. Now, of course, like the last game, FNAF 2 does not end off at Night 5. In the title screen, you have an option to play a 6th night, which does actually have some pretty notable changes compared to Night 5. Starting Night 6, we get a phone call from a very distressed-sounding phone guy, who has this to say.
Hello. What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
He tells us to just finish his shift since it would be dangerous to leave in the middle of the night, and on tomorrow there's a single event schedule of a birthday party. As for the gameplay of this night, it's essentially just a harder version of Night 5, except one major key difference: the addition of Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy is an actual animatronic in this game instead of an Easter egg like FNAF 1. He'll appear in either two spots, that being your office or the hallway. When he appears in either spot, all you have to do is very quickly put on your mask, otherwise, well, at this point you should know what happens. Defeating the Knight will grant us a check worth $20.10 overtime, and a newspaper clipping which reads the following: Freddy Fazbear's is closing. After being open only a few short weeks, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is closing its doors. The new animatronics will be scrapped due to possible malfunctions, however the original characters are being kept in hopes of a possible reorganization of the company. It's a minor setback. We are confident that we will reopen someday, even if it is with a much smaller budget. CEO Fazbear Entertainment. Upon completing Night 6, we are rewarded with the ability to gain access to the custom night, being able to set all 10 animatronics from 0 to 20. And on that note, I think it's time to talk about the reception this game got after its release.
Brought to you by Rogue.
Come on, Tom, let's go!
What is that?
Work, Tom! Work faster! Do you want to be the best?
I want to be the best.
While the first game really started getting the ball rolling for Scott, FNAF 2 would boost the game's popularity even more so than the first one did, and that was definitely thanks to the much clearer storytelling that allowed for the community and newcomers alike to become invested. You might have noticed I skipped out on a huge portion of the game, and it's probably the biggest reason as to why people started paying attention more to the story, and that's the Easter eggs. There were so many unique Easter eggs in the game that just sprinkled tidbits of lore around, and some that were just added for the hell of it, most notably the secret animatronics and the death minigames. I'll get into the secret animatronics first, since they're much more brief compared to the death minigames, and there aren't a whole lot anyways. First we had JJ, which was simply just a retextured female version of Balloon Boy. She would very rarely appear under your desk inside your office, then disappear after your monitor was flicked up. Second, there was Endo, who would very rarely show up in prize corner or your left vent, and is simply just an endoskeleton.
Oh, what the fuck?
They won't actually do anything to your gameplay whatsoever, except when they appear in the left vent, they'll actually prevent another animatronic from going in its spot. So Endo is actually kind of a good guy, except, the dude barely shows up, so I wouldn't really rely on him. The last two were definitely the most mysterious and coolest, that being Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie. Shadow Freddy would have a chance to appear in parts and service once every single withered animatronic left. He had no effect on gameplay, however it was obviously really creepy to just see a full purple blackish version of Freddy with white eyes. Shadow Bonnie, also known as, and I quote, our WQFSASXC, I have no idea why the fuck they're called that, is an extremely rare animatronic that has a 1 in 1 million chance of showing up in your office. All they are is a blacked out version of Toy Bonnie. However, this is the only secret animatronic that will actually have an effect on gameplay. If you stare at Shadow Bonnie for around 4 seconds, your game will just close unless you flash your light at him, to which he'll then fade away. Also, fun fact, you know how I said they were supposed to be a 1 in 1 million chance of spawning? Yeah, I lied. You see, Shadow Bonnie was supposed to be a 1 in 1 million chance. However, the game only has a 16-bit integer limit, meaning the maximum number it can store was only 65,536. So if you divide that number by 1 million, the chance of Shadow Bonnie appearing is actually 1 in 16,384, or around 0.065%. They're obviously still rare as fuck to encounter, but not 1 in 1 million rare. This isn't really important to the lore or story or anything like that, obviously. I just thought that was really interesting. Anyways, I'll stop yapping about bits and shit or whatever. Let's talk about the death minigames. While originally only being able to show up after you die to the puppet, every time you die to any animatronic in the game, there's a chance your screen will start to glitch and play static. You'll be greeted to one of 4 minigames. Save them, take cake to the children, give gifts, give life, or Foxy Go Go Go. Starting with take cake to the children, we play as Freddy and have to go around feeding kids by walking up to them. However, in the outside area of the restaurant, a crying child can be seen. After a little bit, a car drives up to the kid, and then what seems to be a man comes out, Purple Man. The child starts to cry even more and more and more until he turns gray. And then the man gets back into his car and drives away. Once this is over, you're jump scared by the puppet and go back to the title screen. Speaking of the puppet, Give Gifts, Give Life has you playing as said animatronic in a room with what seems to be 4 dead bodies. Go to each body and give them a gift, to which then now you need to go back to each body and give life, putting a mask of one of the 4 original animatronics onto the children. Once you're done with the final mask, however, you'll get jump scared by Golden Freddy. What's really interesting about this one is the fact that just for a single frame, you can actually see a 5th child in the center of the room without a mask before being jump scared. Also, while doing this, the phrase help them is slowly being spelled out. Foxy Go 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 has you playing as, well, Foxy. All you have to do is wait till it's time to go, and then once you've gone to the next room, 5 kids are cheering for you. This is repeated a second time. However, on the 3rd time, a purple man can be seen on the left side of the stage, smiling. When you go this time, all the kids are dead, and then you're jump scared by Withered Foxy. Save Them is the final minigame, and I saved this one for last because it happens to be the rarest, with only a 1 in 10 chance of getting this minigame after you die. This one is much more complicated than the others as well, as there are multiple ways for this game to end, so I'll go into each way. Playing as Freddy once again, you navigate through a large map that seems to resemble the pizzeria, while the phrase save them is spelled out, similar to the Give Gifts minigame. Every 30 seconds there's a 1 in 3 chance that the game will just end out of nowhere, along with a 1 in 4,000 chance that Golden Freddy can appear in one of the rooms. But most interestingly is a rare occurrence that could happen if you move to a room to the right. With a 1 in 100 chance, the same purple man from the 2 minigames will rush toward you, and upon coming in contact, the minigame will end with blue static and the words "you can't" at the bottom left. The other 2 ways this minigame can end is through touching one of the 5 dead bodies scattered around the map or following the puppet into a specific room. It is interesting to note that with all these other endings, however, you'll always get red static instead of blue. Geez, that was a lot of information with Easter eggs. And some of you may have forgotten why I'm bringing this up in the first place, in a section where I'm supposed to talk about the community and such when this could have been talked about in the game section. And well, that's because of the theories. Theories were now popping up left, right, and center because of all this new lore, information, and secrets. Some of these theories would turn out to actually be true, and the others were just missing the mark entirely. Who was the killer? Did Mangle do the bite of 87? Were there actually 2 killers? Is Toy Chica really that bad of a bitch? I remember the most popular theory at the time was the fact that the phone guy was actually the Purple Man, or as the community would name him, the Purple Guy. This would be mainly pushed by MatPat once again. However, this time, it was actually, fucking believable and not total nonsense. The main piece of evidence that was able to drive this home at the time was the fact that in the Save the minigame, it appears to be that he's holding a phone. Which, I mean, yeah, it does. But with that same logic, you could say that his badge was actually a fucking piece of toast. This was very widely accepted though, though, and every other theory related to the purple guy was just kind of pushed off, at least for now. The only other theory I can recall off the top of my head that actually did end up being true in the future was the fact that FNAF 2 was actually a prequel in the story timeline. People started to suspect this at the end of the game when you received your paycheck. The date is November 12th, 1987. In the first game, the bite of 87 was talked about in past tense, so that opened up a whole can of worms that ended up actually being true. This was also pushed by the fact that in the Night 5 phone call, the previous location was a restaurant that we had never heard before at the time, Fredbear's Family Diner, which then led to a bunch of discourse on what the fuck that even was. I mean, I really could go on and on about these theories and questions. What happened to Toy Chica's beak? What's up with those cutscenes between nights? Was Mangle's static actually them calling the cops? Shit, I fucking hope not, man. Fuck 12! That's where I'll end the theory section there. So it's time to finally talk about the rest of the community. Obviously, FNAF 2 was yet another massive game for Let's Players to make videos on. Of course, we had Markiplier, 4th Kenshin, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye. However, there were a ton of YouTubers that were starting to make a name for themselves with the release of the game. Fusion Z Gamer, Dawko, Smite,
Toy Freddy, well, you know, he's kinda, fat.
Are the most notable, especially Dawko, who would dabble in both gameplay and theory crafting. The community would also start to begin to gain fandom status, or how I would put it, fandomize? Yeah, let's just go with that. It would start to fandomize. Now you're probably asking, dude, what the fuck does that even mean? I mean, it was starting to shape more like other fandoms of other popular media, such as Harry Potter, Star Wars, Pokemon, and various animes. It's kind of hard to explain, but to try and beam what I'm thinking into your mind, basically we're getting more ship art, fanfics, and all that good stuff. Like, don't get me wrong here, there are already starting to be a lot of that with FNAF 1, but with FNAF 2 having even more characters amplify the fuck out of this. On the topic of art, fan songs of the game were also starting to become more and more common. The Living Tombstone wasn't the only one in the scene now. However, they still did dominate it, especially with the release of their FNAF 2 song December 4th. What would later be known as It's Been So Long had a fucking iron grip on the community at the time, and still does to this day, although in different ways. You see, back then when this video was uploaded, people somehow came to the conclusion that TLT and Scott Cawthon were working together and that the music video was canon. Now, I have no idea what the fuck the community was on in 2014, but looking back at it now, it was pretty funny. Speaking of the community being sort of delusional, I really gotta talk about the fucking hoaxes that were being made up around this time. These were mostly just fake characters that people tried to convince others were in the game, like a purple guy animatronic that is very clearly just a shitty Golden Freddy edit, a different colored puppet, and Shadow Balloon Boy. If I'm being honest, these all fucking suck. Like, and none of them had any redeeming qualities that would make them a cool hoax like Sparky. Purple Guy was already a secret character. The puppet recolor was just lazy as fuck. And out of all the animatronics you can make a shadow variant of, you chose fucking Balloon Boy. Man, these hoaxes are making me mad because of how fucking dog shit they were, dude. I need something to make me relax. Yeah, there's definitely quite a bit of luck involved, since 1020 is regarded as the max mode involving the most RNG. Either way though, Oluk will receive a personal congratulations from not just Scott, but also Jacksepticeye of all people, which I know must have just felt amazing. Markiplier would also complete the mode, having the most views out of any other YouTuber of course, but it should be noted by the time he uploaded his completion on December 14th, there were countless amount of victors before him, including one which was done on the iOS port of the game, which like geez, way to speedrun Carpal Tunnel man. His 1020 run, to which when I first heard this, I thought it was complete bullshit. But after watching the actual segment of him explaining how, I gotta say the evidence is pretty damning, but it's not like it's the biggest deal in the world, and it would be pretty funny if he just started doing 1020 again right now, just saying. Anyways, that's kinda it for FNAF 2. I mean, I could talk about some animations that released, but to be honest, the only really notable one is Crazy Boris's. However, there are some pretty important things that happened that aren't tied directly to FNAF 2. Before the actual release of FNAF 2, I mentioned how we did get the first ever fan game to be posted on GameJolt. However, when you think of a FNAF fan game nowadays, I don't think shooting Freddy Fazbear in the face is really what you think of. You think of something more similar to the original series gameplay, and on November 2nd, 2014, we would get our first sign of a traditional FNAF fan game. Posted by ANR1996 on DeviantArt, this was the first mention of Five Nights at Treasure Island, a FNAF fan game that took aspects from the creepypasta Abandoned by Disney, written by Slimebeast. There wouldn't be any more posts from some fan art for the rest of the month about the project until November 30th, to which they would post a render of one of the rooms. Then just a single day later, on December 1st, they would post on DeviantArt once again, announcing the demo for the game. They'll put a link to the game in the description of the post, however sadly it doesn't work anymore. One interesting thing to note, however, is actually what is already said at the bottom. I secretly hope that Markiplier will see this. XD. Not only would their wish come true, but they would get much more attention than they were expecting. Markiplier would make a playthrough of the game and upload it to his YouTube channel, which is most likely what gave the game most of its traction, along with Corey Kenshin and a handful of other YouTubers. While being pretty impressive at the time, Treasure Island wouldn't last long, having the title of the only FNAF-style fan game out there. As the year ended and another one started, fan games would start to become more abundant, with games like One Night at Flumpty's, Five Nights at Wario's, and Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Wait, what? Yeah, before the official Five Nights at Freddy's 3 came out, someone by the name of BFP Films or Tyler Ostrom wondered, hey, what if I just stole a shit ton of assets from FNAF 1 and 2, combined them together, and advertised it as a third game? That wouldn't be that bad, right? Uploading his magnificent creation to GameJolt on December 23rd, 2014, he simply titled the fan game Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This caused a ton of confusion on whether this game was official or not, which if I'm being honest, I have no idea how you would see this as official, but Tyler decided to try and dial it back a bit by adding fan-made in the title. However, this still didn't help a whole lot, because it got so bad to the point Scott Cawthon had contacted Tyler asking him to politely change the title of the game completely, as he was getting countless complaints in his email about this game he didn't create. So Tyler simply renamed the game to The Return to Freddy's and uploaded it to GameJolt on January 5th, 2015. This is going to be the only time I mention this game series, since this is the most major event the game went through. On topic of FNAF hoaxes though, there were two fake creations going around that a lot of people fell for. One was a single photo which showcases FNAF 3 supposedly taking place at an amusement park, and the other taking place at a mall. I'll touch on the Freddyland photo first, because it's actually kind of a funny story behind it. The creator of this image, Danger Dude 991, made this when he was around 14 using Apple Keynote, which is literally used for making presentations, by the way, and then he uploaded it to DeviantArt on November 21st. They didn't intend for this image to be a hoax, but it went viral soon after, with a bunch of people acting like it was the next official FNAF teaser. Just around 2 years ago, they would come out and make a post on Reddit saying they were the original creator. Similar to the Freddyland image, Golden Lane Studio had posted their own mock-up FNAF 3 trailer on November 18th, 2014, which depicted a mall in a 3D environment. This one, if I'm being honest, fooled me as a kid. Looking back, I have no idea how anyone fell for either of these, considering there were so many things that made it obviously fake. I think it's also pretty funny to note that these two fake teasers were honestly pretty similar in how they were. Both took place at a public location, were intended to just be fan-made mock-ups, but then taken seriously with people saying it was real. Last but not least, for the community developments that took place at this time, on January 4th, 2015, Splinks would release their iconic SFM models of the original 5 animatronics to the world, which would be used in countless fan animations, mods, and renders. Like seriously, these models were the models you wanted to use if you were to create anything FNAF related in SFM. Like I said before, after the release of FNAF 2, Scott Cawthon had updated his website to simply display offline. However, a little under a month later, this site would be updated on December 6, 2014. Now I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't see how this image was different from the last one. However, using Photoshop to brighten the image, it was pretty obvious as to what Scott was hinting at. The message would be replaced soon after with a simple Merry Christmas, and it will stay that way until the next year, on January 4th, 2015. I am still here. The community at the time theorized that this was Fredbear, because if you brightened the image and flipped it, it created a face that kinda resembled a bear. But once again, in hindsight, this was just people stretching again. 11 days later, we would get yet another teaser, this time a box filled with parts from the toy and withered animatronics, essentially confirming that this takes place both after FNAF 1 and 2. Upon also brightening up the image for the 10 billionth time, we would get a better look at the mystery animatronic. Then after another 11 days, we finally got the trailer for the third game. Compared to the last two trailers, this didn't reveal a lot of gameplay at all. However, we did get a much better look at the new animatronic, which the community had now nicknamed Golden Bonnie or Salvage. He still didn't get a release date for the game. However, just a single day later, Scott gave GameSpot.com would be updated to one of the phrases from the trailer but in purple, before being put back to a box of animatronic parts. As January 2015 had come and gone, the community was ecstatic for this game. It was the most hyped title in the franchise so far, and hell, a lot of people even agree that it was the most hyped game in the series even to this day. Then suddenly on February 4th, Scott updated his website once again, showcasing the map layout for the first time. Upon brightening his image once again, the hidden layout of the map was shown, and we would come to find out what it was later. Another 11 days would go by without a single teaser. Wow, this guy really likes the number 11 for some reason. Until unexpectedly, Scott made a community post on Steam that someone had hacked him into the game to GameJolt, so he decided to cancel the game. If you were to find this GameJolt page and download the file, you were greeted to a title screen that looked ultimately legit. In fact, the music used in this was actually the same music used in the actual FNAF 3, just slowed down a bit. Notice how I said actual FNAF 3, because upon starting a new game, the players were just greeted to "there is no pause" button, but Freddy's head paste on top of the character. Besides updating his website and uploading trailers, Scott would also do other things to generate hype or reveal certain things, such as trolling the community or even making Steam posts that, while seem normal, actually contain hidden messages. For example, this mysterious animatronic that the community had nicknamed Golden Bonnie and Salvage actually had his real name revealed in the community post Scott made. While the post itself was about beta testing for the game, some letters were duplicated, and upon taking every single letter that was doubled, it spelled "my name Springtrap." After this, the community would be in a drought with teasers until the last day of February. Guess who? Was a photo of a different model of Balloon Boy and a 10 when brightening the image. It was believed that this was supposed to be a countdown, as the day after March 1st, another teaser would be updated to the website with different variants of Foxy and Chica with the message, "It's all in your mind." As confusing as this was at the time, the community would have to speculate for long, if at all, on what this meant, because if the number on the Guess Who trailer was actually a countdown, Scott just said fuck that and released the game on March 2nd. Now, when I said the game was released on March 2nd, that was sort of a lie. You see, over the past 2 installments, Scott was actually putting together a VIP list for certain people to gain early access to his game. This list has grown longer and longer as time went on. When FNAF 3 came out, the only 2 people I could say for certain were on this list are Markiplier and Cornix Kenshin, both releasing a video on March 2nd, 2015 of the 2-night demo, while everyone else was able to get their copy of the full game the next day. Anyways, with that out of the way, I'll get into the meat and potatoes of the game itself. Starting a new game, we are greeted with a newspaper clipping like nothing else we have seen. Instead of working at a pizzeria, we are now working for a horror attraction that is actually based on the events of the pizzeria itself. And something to note is the fact that this time around, there is actually no job listing seen anywhere. But nonetheless, we started for shift. While the last 2 games had some sort of threat that could still kill you even though you kinda had to be dumb on purpose to get killed, FNAF 3's first night is impossible to die on, due to the fact that there's actually no threat even inside the building. I'm gonna summarize the phone call really quickly by only covering the bits that are important, because the phone call itself is actually pretty damn long, and by the time it's over, the night itself is over. To get some context, we are working at this horror attraction as both a real and prop night guard, with the idea being that as people walk through the haunted house-esque building, our office is a point of interest, and we are part of the attraction itself, being almost like a prop security guard, except the fact that we, are an actual security guard. The place is supposed to open within a week, as said by our phone guy, or well, phone dude as he's called, since he's kinda got this server voice. All we gotta do is make
sure everything works and nothing catches on fire.
Also, we are given a reason as to why this night has no threats at all, and it's because they're looking for more props from the pizzeria and haven't found anything, well, too exciting. In fact, the plan is, if they still haven't found anything that interesting, the phone dude says he might have us put on a quote, furry suit and make us walk around the place. I kid you not, they might have been planning to commission a fursuit for us to wear. However, this might not happen since someone who works for the attraction actually got in contact with an architect for one of the Fazbear buildings and claims there is a room that actually got boarded up, which can contain some props for the attraction. That's basically it for night 1. Now, you probably noticed I didn't explain any of the game's mechanics there whatsoever. That's because I'm going to explain it next night when it actually comes into play. But first, the mini-games. At the end of each night, we are able to play a mini-game where we control an animatronic. For night 1, we control Freddy. Moving to any of the rooms, we see a purple version of Freddy, which looks similar to Shadow Freddy in a way, and in the bottom left corner, he tells us to follow him. Upon following him to the certain room, we are unable to enter. However, trying to go in a different room more results in
No one's dumb enough to go with a gun.
That's kind of our specialty.
Night 2 is where we finally get into danger territory. Picking up the call from the phone dude, he's pretty ecstatic to tell us he found one, a real one. You'll find out what that one is soon. This is the last time we ever hear from Phone Dude, not because he died, but because from here on out, our phone calls will consist of training tapes that were found as well, and he lets one play for the rest of the night. This training tape that plays is intended to be listened by a performer/entertainer for Freddy Fazbear's, and here we are first introduced to the idea of a hybrid costume. With 2 available suits, they can work both as being an animatronic and being worn as a suit at the same time. However, this is super fucking dangerous due to the fact it can literally cause accidents/injury/death/irreparable and grotesque maiming. The way these costumes go from animatronic to suit, however, is through a very important and iconic part of the series, spring locks. All you have to do is use a crane to compress the spring locks to prevent them from getting in the way, and now it can be worn as the suit. That's basically it for this night's lore. Now I can finally talk about how the gameplay works. If you put on your thinking cap or just know about this extremely popular 9-year-old game, you know that Springtrap is introduced into this night, who is the only animatronic in this game that can kill you. Now to deal with him, you need to use your monitor system, which is at the very right of your office. Upon opening it, there's a lot to see here. To start, you will notice that there's a play audio button and map toggle button, which are both very important. Springtrap will start on camo 9 and go through any of these cameras. You can press the play audio button to play an audio lure, which will bring him to the room you just played the audio in, if it's not super far away from him. However, you need to watch out for what room you put him in, because it could contain a vent. If a vent is in said room, you can crawl through it, and that's where the map toggle comes into play. You can toggle between maps using this button, and see cameras that are installed inside vents. If Springtrap is inside a vent, double click the vent camera he's in to seal it, so he comes back out. If he goes through completely, you're basically fucked since the vent goes directly into your office. Now this gameplay sounds pretty easy, however, there's phantoms. Phantom animatronics can appear in various places, however if you see them and don't counter them, you'll get jump scared, but instead of dying, it'll fuck up one of your 3 systems. Moving to left of the office, you can flip up another monitor with 3 different systems on it: audio, camera, and ventilation. If the audio services are down, then you can't use the audio lure. If the camera system is down, then you can't use any of the cameras at all. However, you still could use the audio devices if they're online. If ventilation is down, then your screen will occasionally black out. Now for the rest of the night, I'm only going to be talking about the phone calls and lore, because this is essentially it for the gameplay for the rest of the nights. I mean, except for the fact that it does get harder and some of the phantom animatronics are introduced later on, that's essentially all it is. So that's why I decided to explain it just all there. Anyways, let's move on to this night's minigame. It's essentially the same as last time, but just with Bonnie. Follow Shadow Freddy, and then get dismantled. Night 3's phone call is a continuation from Night 2, explaining more about the spring locks. If any pressure or moisture is put on the spring locks, they'll come loose. And if this happens while you are wearing the suit, they instruct you to fucking leave from any populated areas before you bleed out. The audacity of these motherfuckers. According to the tape, there's a safe room in every single location that is not marked on any visual map layout. So it's hidden to customers, cameras, and animatronics. So you're supposed to go there and just die, I guess. I'm starting to think Fazbear Entertainment isn't exactly the most clean company in the world. Night 3's minigame is just the same, but with Chica, she dies. Oh no. Night 4's phone call, while not a direct continuation, is still related to the spring locks. So these spring locks obviously are really fucking sketchy, right? Considering the fact that these can kill you in an instant if you put pressure or breathe on them. Well, apparently at a sister location within the company, there were a bunch of spring lock failures, and now the suits are deemed temporarily unsafe. You don't fucking say. However, if you want to, you can still wear them since they're free of liability. Yeah, let me just put on my portable saw trap for fun. Night 4's minigame is just the same shit except... Wait. Foxy. Foxy, no, wait, don't go there! Foxy, no! Night 5's phone call gives more information about the safe room in what is assumably the pizzeria. The phone guy also mentioned something about a spring Bonnie animatronic that was moved, and since it was one of the 2 suits with the spring locks, he mentioned it's not safe to wear at all. So you know, don't wear that. After this night has ended, however, we finally get to know who Springtrap really is. For this final minigame, we play as a crying child. Making our way to a room where all the dismantled animatronics are, we can finally enter the area where they couldn't. There are 4 other kids and the purple guy. Trying to get closer to him just makes him back away. Using this mechanic, we make him run into an old suit. Unlike the last two games, there are two endings that are available to be achieved. However, I'll go over the second ending after covering the sixth nightmare. Like the past 3 nights, Nightmare Mode's gameplay isn't exactly anything special besides the fact that it's just harder. However, what is really interesting is once again, the phone call, but also the ending. Going over the phone call first, it is actually the shortest of them all, but it's the final piece of the puzzle on who Springtrap really is and what happened to him. Due to budget cuts, every single safe room, including the one inside the pizzeria, had a false wall built to block off the room. Nobody checked walls inside, it was simply just blocked off, with everything inside being forgotten forever, or that's what it seemed like. After this night, you get a newspaper clipping revealing that the horror attraction burnt down, with it being unknown whether it was on purpose or accident. But on that note, I'll talk about what needs to be done to get the good ending. Looking back on these steps, I wonder how the fuck anyone even figured out any of this. Like, this ending is so complicated for no reason with multiple steps and fake outs. But I guess I'll stop bitching. Here's the speedrun on how to get the good ending. Start a new game, go to Camo 8 and click the Balloon Boy poster twice. Get every single balloon, but instead of going towards the exit, go to the top left wall and fall through. Go right and get this other balloon. Complete night 1, go to Camo 7 on night 2 and press the buttons on this arcade machine in this order. In every single part from angle, go above the door, through the wall once again and face through the wall. Do this parkour, get the cake, go back to the Balloon Boy minigame and face through the wall. Do parkour again, give this kid cake, complete night 2, and on night 3 look for cupcakes on the cameras 02, 03, 04, and 06. Get this cupcake, go down here, ignore these little shit stains, jump over the room and give this kid cake, complete night 3, go to this specific part of the office which for some reason is a fucking keypad and insert the numbers 395248. Do some really weird maze shit and go to this room and give this kid cake. Complete night 4, and on night 5, go all the way to the right and click this figure which is supposed to be Shadow Body. Go to the left while spamming S and give this kid his cake. Go to Camo 3 on the same night and click the puppet face. Give the last and final cake. Complete night 5, spring lock this stupid purple fuck, and finally...
Love games but hate the grind? With Wiimod, you can be invincible, unimaginably wealthy.
We have the good ending. And on that note, let's talk about what this game did for the series. Now, despite the game being the most hyped entry in this series, even to this day, reviews were generally pretty mixed. There were a lot of things that FNAF 3 had going for it. The gameplay mechanics, mini-games, secrets, storytelling, atmosphere. Most would agree that it was the best so far out of the 3 games in these aspects. However, there were a handful of things dragging the game down that a lot of fans really disliked. Some thought the gameplay was too boring or too easy. They didn't like the Phantom animatronics or their designs as they were thought to be too lazy. But most importantly, the thing that is still the most controversial part about FNAF 3, Springtrap's jump scare. Now, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. 100% Springtrap's jump scare is fucking ass. I really don't know how Scott went from this actual masterpiece of Wizard Fox's jump scare to this rabbit that basically kills you by mewing. This is easily the thing that drags down FNAF 3 the most. Well, alongside the fact that the environments do just look like a vegetarian shit was spread all over everything, but that can be mostly excused. So now we've talked about the worst part of the game. Let's get to what is easily the best part of the game, the storytelling. Right off the bat, FNAF 3's story is a lot easier to follow with everything from the phone calls, mini games, and the fact that the information given to us is actually in chronological order. Speaking of which, let's analyze the story and then get into the theories. Upon killing all the 5 kids and stuffing their bodies into animatronics, Purple Guy leads them to the safe room one by one, but since they're programmed to not be able to go inside, they're essentially baited and Purple Guy dismantles them all one by one. These spirits now having no place to go, corner the Purple Guy in the said room, so he runs to put on an old Springlock suit in the hope of scaring them off. However, we know from the vintage tapes, this suit was specifically put there due to the fact that it was extremely dangerous to be worn, which proves itself to be correct as the Purple Guy is springlocked and killed. Soon after, Fazbear Entertainment boards up every single safe room of their location, including the one that contained the Springlock suit with Purple Guy in it, so he is left there to rot away for 30 years. Somehow during this time, he is brought back to life, and the room is finally opened because of the people behind the Fazbear horror attraction looking for decoration. They now take Springtrap with them to the horror attraction, and after 6 days where all this information is revealed to us, the building is burned down, with no indication whether Springtrap survived or not. Now, there aren't really a whole lot of theories to actually cover since, well, the story is just really easy to understand, but there still were some unsolved questions. Which ending was official, the good or bad? What is the difference between the two? What was the cause of the building burning down? And if it was someone that set it on fire, who? A lot of questions from the first two games were solved. However, there were some new ones that were created. I mean, hell, to this day, people still don't know whether the good ending or bad ending is canon, which adding on to that, the difference between the two is that the bad ending doesn't free the souls, but the good one does. It didn't seem like we were getting an answer to these questions though, since after the game was released, Scott had updated his website to a single top hat in a spotlight, indicating he was finally done. That doesn't mean the community was done, however. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to forget about them. You already know the Let's Play scene for this game was huge once again, along with the community now going full throttle into becoming a fandom, especially with people who were thirsting for Springtrap, which, I mean, can kind of see where they're coming from. So how were the other sides of the YouTube scene for this game? I mean, obviously they were fucking bumping. TLT released their FNAF 3 song, which to this day is still the most disconnected this song has been from its game, besides the whole dismantling animatronics thing. I genuinely think it's the best one they've released, period. But we are now finally starting to get some competition with other musicians popping their head into the space like EA Games and JT Music. Of course, accompanying those songs were fan animations of those songs and fan animations in general. We had your usual faces like Crazy Boars and Pymations. Wait, this is an animation based on FNAF 2, why isn't it the third? Yeah, he released this one after FNAF 3 came out. You know those animations just don't grow on trees. But we also had some new faces show up like Sugar in the animation scene with their fan animations of various songs and memes, which just watching now again feels like I just went straight back to 2015 because the style of these are just so nostalgic. Anyways, let's talk hoaxes. How many of these did we have here? What the fuck? Yeah, the amount of hoaxes being spread during this time already took a huge dip compared to FNAF 2. I mean, hell, there isn't even anything really interesting here besides a few handful of things, which once again, some of them weren't even meant to be hoaxes in the first place. These models by Faz Boggle of fan-made Withered designs, while all kinda meh, the one that sticks out the most is Withered Balloon Boy. I have no idea what made this one stick out the most to people, but they just kinda ran with it. There was also these fan-made animatronic designs from someone named Emil Mako, which did look pretty good to the point where people said they were official FNAF animatronics, although this was debunked pretty recently. This Emil person does have some pretty good modeling skill. I wonder if he'll do anything with it. There's also this fake email from the supposed real Scott Cawthon that was just literally Inspect Elemented. This shit is the oldest trick in the book. Next! Max modes? You like max modes? I like max modes. You better like max modes. While FNAF 3 never had a custom night, there was something this game had that others didn't have before, an extras menu. Upon entering the menu, you got a bunch of stuff like jump scares for every animatronic, the animatronics themselves, mini games, and the most intriguingly, cheats. There were 4 cheats in total, but only 3 of them actually made the game easier. The last one actually increased the AI levels of all the animatronics. That cheat was called aggressive. So pair this cheat with nightmare mode, now you've got aggressive nightmare mode. The first person to post their victory of this mode on YouTube is someone by the name of Raiderhorn Bar. However, in the description of this video, they credit a different person named Senpai for uploading their completion first. But this video cannot be found, so this is the earliest still standing completion of aggressive nightmare mode. And of course, Markiplier had to keep his self-proclaimed crown for the title of the King of FNAF, so he beat the mode as well. And on that note, let's move on to the events after FNAF 3. Before I talk about these certain events, I think it's important to note that around this time, people were starting to lose interest in the series. I mean, there are already 3 games in less than a year. It was assumed to have ended. Some lost faith in Scott simply because of the fact that Springtrap's jump scare was as stupid as that sounds. And with the rise of cringe culture, people started to see fandoms like FNAF as cringy. Therefore, it became quote-unquote cringy to like FNAF as well, which nowadays that perspective, in my opinion, is cringe itself. This didn't stop fanworks at all, however, with one of the most influential fan games actually being released at this time. You know how I said I would only mention the Return to Freddy's once? Well, I lied, because there's actually a really important animatronic in that game, Sugar. Using a render from the previously mentioned Emil Mako and his fan character Candy the Cat, Tyler just stole it, cropped out the head, and pasted it over Toy Bonnie's jump scare. Emil obviously didn't like this and didn't appreciate his work being used in fan games, but this got him thinking, if his work were to be used without permission in fan games that quite frankly were fucking dog shit, he might as well try his hand at making his own fan game. So after several months on July 18th, 2015, he released Five Nights at Candy's to massive success. eventually creating 2 games after in the following years, but I won't get into that. Along with one of the most influential then games being released this year, we also got the first pieces of real FNAF merchandise. Produced by the company Sanchi, they dropped quite the lineup for being the first merchandise of the series, including plushies that are very accurate to the original scene of the game, these collector pins, and even the same Celebrate poster from the first game. It's a good thing that these were the first pieces of merch too, because the Sanchi line is regarded as some of the best official merchandise you can buy, and I swear on my life and a god if there is one, I will get my hands on every single one of these plushies, especially you, Foxy. You are not safe for me. This year also marks the first mention of a movie adaptation for the game being in works, under the company of Warner Brothers Studios, but you'll see that this didn't come into fruition, and the fact that it wouldn't for several fucking years. Anyways, that top hat from Scott's website is gone. Wait, what?
Are you a Roblox fanatic? Microsoft Rewards has a brand new way for you to earn digital gift cards from Roblox. On April 23rd, 2015, the top hat that accompanied the website for over a month had just vanished. Well, I guess we're getting another game. 5 days later, we would all get our first look at the new animatronics and even the release date of the game. It was all but confirmed that we were finally getting the last game in the series, releasing on Halloween. Only look at the Freddy variant for this game, it was hyping itself up to be the scariest one yet. Upon also doing the good old bright-to contrast trick, the word Nightmare could be seen across the image, which gave him the name of Nightmare Freddy. Going into May on the 8th, we would get another teaser, this time asking a question and showing off Nightmare Bonnie's model. The "was it me" question was assumed to be a callback to the Bite of 87, reigniting the discussion on which animatronic did it. 9 days later, we got a look at Nightmare Chica, still asking the same question. The entirety of May would go by without a single teaser. Well, that is until the second to last day of the month with a look at Nightmare Foxy. Now this teaser actually stands out the most to me because first of all, it's Foxy. Second of all, this design actually did not make the final cut of the game. Scott had ended up removing Nightmare Foxy's tongue. Now speculated this was done because Scott wanted less, well, freaky Vanilla characters, but it ended up being revealed that he just didn't find the tongue scary enough and it was harder to animate. Also, yeah, by this time people were drawing porn of the FNAF characters, get over it. Entering June on the 12th, another top hat was shown, with an added bow tie and both of the items sharing a purple color instead of black, brightening the image once again. The bottom of the image could be seen a property of tag that cut off at the company name. However, it was quickly carried on, with it ended up being a property of Fredbear's Family Diner. 2 weeks would go by before another teaser, this time revealing who the purple bow tie had belonged to, although at the time it was unknown who this mysterious black bear character was. However, this time Scott had done a different tactic of teasers, and it was now hiding it within the source code of the website. Upon using Inspect Element and looking through some of the tag names, there's a random string of letters which, when moving back every single letter by one, it was revealed to be the name of Fredbear. This was the first time Scott had done this, and it was definitely not the last. Speaking of, going into July, now on the 10th, we got another teaser of a character who was found to be named Plushtrap through the website's code once again. Then 3 days later, we got our final teaser before the game's release, the trailer of the game itself. This revealed to us some of the mechanics of the game, such as the doors making a return, except in a much more traditional sense, along with the flashlight, as well as the location, a house. I remember not only being absolutely hyped, but also fucking terrified of this trailer. Like, those animatronics were not playing around, and that jump scare from Bonnie actually sent me like 15 feet flying backwards. Speaking of which, I think it's notable to say that one of the supposed main reasons that Scott
What can I do for you, new kid? Shot and killed any of them animals in the wildlife guide? I'll make it worth your while.
Remember, you can legally kill anything in self-defense.
Who? What? Hey, I guess I hit it a little hard at the bar this morning. Thanks for waking me up, kid. You on Facebook?
Oh, you want some of this? I'm gonna beat the shit out of you! Kiss my ass! Wait, whose turn is it? Man, I could be watching TV right now. Feel my righteous fury! You think we were too hard on him?
love when spring is on them.
Well done! The galaxy is in your debt. Let it be known that I have been, and will always be, your friend. On Facebook. Live long and prosper. If it splashes, it means you get a free wish.
Do not despair, for many find Jesus only to lose him later. But the soul that does not abandon its search will surely be rewarded with his company. Remember that. Find Christ, my son, and you shall be greatly rewarded.
That was so amazing, what you did for me. I won't forget it.
We still have hobos, kid. Come back when you've solved our little problem.
Oh, you want some of this?
You're going down.
Oh, shit!
Stop it.
Feel my righteous fury!
Much better.
should be nice.
I have to go to the bathroom.
There you go, Al. Hey, I'm lucky. Ah! 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 I rubber your glue. I hope you're just sleeping.
I hope you're not playing that dumb game with everyone. What kind of monster are you?
To get the Stick of Truth, we must recruit the Warriors 3.
They're gonna interview me for a piece on youth narcissism. I can't wait to read about me.
Stay out of the Lost Forest. Sure, it's got treasure, but they say there's no way out.
Maybe they'll put a picture of me in the article, too!
Oh!
Homer told me to pick that spot. Pretty good, huh?
Some mornings I wake up with a sore asshole. I must be sleeping on it, Bunny. Oh!
That was so amazing! What you did for me, I won't forget it.
The Lord shall make himself known when he chooses to reveal himself, but he will only reveal himself to those who wish to find him.
Fuck you, asshole!
I'm going to beat the shit out of you.
You want some of this? Keep good!
Come on!
Oh, it's on! Yeah, that's it, little buddy. Feel my righteous fury! Meanie! That wasn't so bad. The new kid's screwing around again. I think I just found the new bottom bitch.
Can you keep a secret? Neither can I.
Tee hee hee hee. Tee hee hee hee. Tee hee hee hee. Tee hee hee hee.
Douchebag, we aren't really being good teammates here. Can we get back to the quest?
Find your own pit of despair, God.
I see only death and decay. You are a
Oh,
rotting
please.
corpse.
What
to
goth
me.
kid walks around in those clothes?
We don't hang with conformists. Go get the stuff to look like we do.
Well, well. Prepare to eat shit. Yeah, that's it, little buddy. Feel my righteous fury! just sleepy.
I'll give you a good price. I'll give you a good price.
We will kill them with compassion! Feel my righteous fury!
You founded me.
Seriously, dude. Feel my righteous fury! Nobody likes me.
My sister Kenny doesn't need protecting, but watch out for her anyway.
I always love when spring is on the way. Such a fun and inspiring.
If you see Kenny, tell him to pick up some dinner on his way home. Not them fancy toaster strudels, though. Just regular Pop-Tarts.
What we're gonna do is just cut out some paper, like this. Cut out little stars, moon shapes. And then just...
I continue to admire your awesomeness.
Welcome to the neighborhood!
I'm using stealth. You can't see me. Goddamn humans are ugly. Ah! What if we just make friends instead? Feel my righteous fury! That wasn't very nice. Nobody stopped a paladin! Whoopee! Hey, what's up?
There's this cool old dude who sells clothes on the other side of town. Enjoy your popularity and 1.9 children in your 401k, conformist.
We are all dying from the moment we are born.
Oh, please. What goth kid walks around in those clothes?
Go conform somewhere else, kid.
Is douchebag your real name?
If you're ever traveling, Photo Dojo has a great deal on passport photos.
Can we please get back to playing the game? It'll be way more fun than this. Fuck you, asshole! Hamburgers!
Man, I could be watching TV right now.
Critter! Feel my righteous fury! That didn't count! Wasn't so bad. So, hamburgers, I'm rubber, you're glue. Forgive me, douchebag.